consuming meat, dairy, overpopulating. If we keep going in this direction, what's going to happen to the world in the next 10 years?
You have a system that rewards selfishness. So then why are we surprised that people are greedy and selfish?
What is the easiest thing someone can do to help contribute towards climate change?
They created this convention at the UN. So they measure CO2 from fossil fuels in its entirety. But when you do CO2 emissions from land use change, you get a 70% discount. And when the animal is eating and breathing out CO2 into the atmosphere, you get a 100% discount. Who does engineering like this?
It's completely skewing the data.
Exactly. I realized that being vegetarian was actually the worst thing I could be doing.
What about the people who have low income source? If they transition to climate friendly diet, will they face malnutrition?
कुछ ईयर्स बाद हम पाएंगे कि मुंबई और ऐसे जो एरियाज हैं वो पानी के अंदर जा चुके होंगे। कितनी सच्ची है ये बात कि ये हो जाएगा?
Animal husbandry leads to a copious amount of organic waste that is being produced. How have you observed that this, through the phenomenon of bioaccumulation and magnification, is coming back to harm us?
Yeah, look.
Hi guys, welcome to Kindness with Amy. Today I'm joined by Dr.Sailesh Rao, who is an author and has decades of experience in the climate space. He is the founder and executive director of Climate Healers, which is a US-based NGO whose sole purpose is to restore the earth. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me at KWA.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So I'm going to deep dive right in, and I would love you to share with my audience. Can you please tell me about climate change? Is climate change just all hype?
No. I've been at it for 16 years studying this, and it is definitely happening. And it is basically you see it in the temperature increase on the planet. It's one main way. And the other way you see it is the change in weather patterns.
Right.
And how it's getting all scrambled up around the world.
What is in your opinion, the number one cause of climate change?
The absolute leading cause of climate change is animal agriculture. There is no question in my mind that it is a leading cause. And it is not being framed that way in the mainstream because there has been an attempt to hide what is really causing climate change.
But who would be trying to hide what the real cause of climate change is?
The problem is that we have a system that is going out of stability. Okay? So it's not only the human system, but the ecological system that supports life. And the human system is trying to maintain itself.
Right.
So there is a whole system around, how do we get food into your tables? How do we get goods and how do we travel from one place to the other? So it's an economic system that we have built. And that economic system is now in direct conflict with the life support systems of the planet. And when that happens, the economic system has to give in.
Right.
But suppose someone says, I'm not going to give in. You're not going to change the economic system, which is exactly what happened in the 1990s. And the UN identified these major environmental problems. The president of the US was George H.W. Bush at that time. He came to the Rio summit and he said, the American way of life is not negotiable. So that started this whole impetus towards hiding what is really causing the problem. Okay. Because if you look at the three major environmental problems that the UN identified, the number one was loss of biodiversity. The number two is the loss of ecosystems. And the third was climate change. For the first two, we absolutely know that animal agriculture is the leading cause. Or loss of biodiversity is the leading cause of the collapse of ecosystems. But for climate change, we are framing it as not animal agriculture, but fossil fuels. And this, brings in this whole idea of green growth, so that you can do green growth and address climate, and then you don't have to look at the other two problems. Okay, so that's how they've been framing it.
Wow.
And this is why I call it an attempt at deception. But in reality, if you look at it as a system, and I'm a systems engineer, and I look at the whole system, it's screaming at me that animal agriculture is a leading cause of climate change as well as the other two problems. And the only reason they're able to pretend it is not is that they put a convention at the UN to measure only fossil fuels and net land use as the total of greenhouse gas emissions from CO2. They ignored all the other contributions of animal agriculture, which is,
skewing the data
it is skewing the data.
to have another agenda at play.
Exactly.
And I find it fascinating because the data is literally in front of us.
Yes.
And when I was doing research for something else, I was shocked to realize. So when COVID happened, right, people died, and it was a big thing, right? And everyone was talking so much about the amount of people dying from COVID. But when you start looking at what other things people are dying from, right? Over 30 million people die from cardiac-related issues. Now, what's the number one cause of cardiac-related issues? It is indeed animal products, animal protein-saturated fats. And there was the largest study in the world done on heart attacks. This was actually done in the UK by Dr. William Costelli. And basically, he concluded that in the US, if people stopped eating meat, heart attacks would literally disappear. And he even stated that Americans have been brainwashed to consume meat. And this is coming from a prominent doctor who has conducted one of the largest studies in the world. But since then, obviously nothing has really changed. There's still so much larger agendas at play that is setting the narrative for what the everyday person thinks they need to consume and thinks they need to have in order to be healthy.
Right.
You ask anyone on the street, where do you get your calcium from? Everyone will say it's the milk. Everyone's being fed this idea. And when you say something long enough, people honestly start believing it's the truth. And so I'm always fascinated by that. Actually, something we were talking about before this podcast we started filming about being vegetarian and vegan.
Right.
So in your opinion, as a climate expert, when we talk to so many people about being vegetarian, when we think about being vegetarian, a lot of people will say being vegetarian is more than enough, but vegan is too much. It's extreme. As a climate expert, what is your opinion on that?
Well, I went vegan in 2008, and I realized that being vegetarian was actually the worst thing I could be doing.
Why?
From an environmental perspective. Because what happens when you're vegetarian is that you are buying milk on a daily basis.
Right.
So you're causing the cow to be brought into this world for milking, right? You're causing all these male calves to be disappeared off the face of the earth.
Right.
And then when you finish with the cow, she's all paid for. See, because we paid for her on a daily basis by drinking milk. Of course. She's all paid for, which means she's cheap beef.
Yeah.
So the source of McDonald's beef and all these fast food beef is a dairy cow. Right? So then I realized that I was still a bit.
So literally, if you're drinking milk, you are contributing to indirectly to directly.
Directly to the fast food industry.
Yeah.
And to the cheap leather industry. Okay, so I went vegan on the spot. I had this whole sense of shame that I'd been brainwashed into thinking that it was, just a little bit worse than going vegan. In reality, it's the worst. Because if no one went and ate the beef, that cow would live for another 15 years.
Yeah.
And she'll be eating up the forest.
Yeah.
Okay? Ultimately, it's the land use on this planet that is determining climate change. That's the leading cause of climate change. Okay? How we use the land. Because over the last 10,000 years, we have cut half the trees on the planet. There used to be 5 to 6 trillion trees. Now there are only 3 trillion trees. But the remaining 3 trillion trees are storing twice as much carbon as in the entire atmosphere, and 4 times as much carbon as in all the fossil fuels we have burned to date. Okay? Which means that if you return the 3 trillion trees that we cut, can we not reverse climate change?
Yeah.
It's such a simple calculation. that anyone should be able to understand. That tells you that releasing land back to nature, restoring the forests, restoring the wildlife. So then you address not only climate change, you also address biodiversity loss, you also address the loss of ecosystems. With just one single act.
Yeah.
Which is for all of us to go beef. Okay? So I say vegan, it's not just eating animals. Stop eating animals, stop wearing them, stop using them for any purpose.
No.
So then you don't have to bring them into the world record.
Yeah.
So it's time for us as a species to thank the animals for their service and to restore the planet and take on our responsibility as the species that has to stabilize the life support system for the planet from here on out. Because if we are a species that is powerful enough to destroy the life support systems of the planet, we have a responsibility to stabilize it and maintain it forever.
Yeah.
Right? So I say that we have to grow up as a species. It's time to let go of our mother, the mother cow, thank her for 10,000 years of service, and we have to grow up as a species.
I find it, I think I have a very bleak view of our species though, and I think the more and more people you meet who might make stupid comments about this is a very serious issue. Right? And choosing to be vegan is not some random fad. It's an educated, common sense, logical decision for the planet. But most of the time people will make really stupid or outdated comments, read the same. So I'm not sure if our species is capable of growing up. I certainly hope we are.
No, I have full faith in humanity.
I love that you have faith. That is so amazing because I really don't. And but the thing is though, when I meet amazing people like yourself and I meet other vegans, like we have a wonderful live audience here today who are truly wanting to do better and learn better and evolve, that does instill me with some confidence that maybe not everyone is shit, but I meet so many people who just don't can or just don't get it.
Amy, what happens is everyone is born amazing. Okay? So you have an amazing species and then they're educated out of being amazing. Okay? So it's the system. It's an education system. It's the food system. It's all the systems that they are put in place to maintain the power structure to planet. That's what the system is doing right now.
Right.
You need to be creating systems that support the life support systems of the planet.
From my understanding, it seems that it's top down in the sense that the top 1% or whatever you want to call it set the narrative for how the rest of the population perceive the world, whether we're talking about media or if we're talking about anything else that's fed into what we want as people, what we think is right as people, right? So hence why I think there is so much misinformation out there with people not understanding or knowing. You know, like when we learn about the food pyramid and the fact that dairy and meat lobbyists actually contribute to the food pyramid structure. There doesn't need to be meat and dairy on a food pyramid, but it's there, you know. So can you tell me an amazing statistic that you've come across in your research about animal agriculture?
Well, something that I think you'll like is that the milk of a cow is designed to make your body grow 40 to 60 times faster than your body ever needs to grow.
Wow.
Think about it. A cow is 5 times our size.
Yes.
And her fluid that she's producing for her baby
Yes.
is designed to make her baby go from calf to cow in 18 months.
Yeah.
We have to grow from baby to adult in 18 years.
Yeah.
And you're 1/5 her size. How could it possibly be good food for you?
I mean, when you think about it logically, a mother's milk is to fatten its child, right?
Right.
And that's literally what it's for.
Right.
So, wow, that's crazy. So, in your opinion, what is the easiest thing someone can do to help contribute towards climate change?
The easiest thing you can do is to change what you're eating to whole food, plant-based, So make it healthy vegan, not just vegan, but healthy vegan, because it's important for all of us, our species, to become healthy. And because only when you're healthy can you go and help other species, right? If you're not healthy, then we're going to be taking care of you in the hospital. There'll be a lot of resources spent on human systems to just treat our own diseases.
Yeah.
But there is so much work to be done on the planet, to help other animals come back, to bring back the trees that we cut, to restore the ecosystems of the planet. Literally, there's a fire going on in our planet, and veganism is the water hose that puts out that fire. Okay, so this is why I consider it to be so important.
So many people do not hold that opinion though, and they honestly believe that a vegan diet is just a fad. It's not necessarily contributing or necessary, for the world. I always look at things from a very ethical perspective. I'm not a professional in really anything when it comes to health or environment. And so whenever I think about the idea of veganism, for me, it's always coming from a moral baseline. I'm a very big fan of Gary Francione, and I always loved his works when I first went vegan. And he's written a number of amazing books, and he always referred to veganism as being a moral baseline for you as a human. And so I always really enjoyed this approach, because once my foundational baseline of non-violence is clear, then everything else on top of that just fits and it makes sense in terms of decision making, right? So for me with veganism, the fact that it's good for the environment, best for the environment, and best for my body, these are all like extra cherries on top. That's so amazing.
Correct.
And the more you peel back these layers, you realize that this is part of a much grander picture. Like there's so much significance and importance and requirement for us to move and shift to a plant-based diet where possible.
See, I agree with you that this is the moral baseline. Veganism is the moral baseline. It should be based on the moral considerations towards other life forms. But simultaneously, that moral baseline has been there for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Right? So why did it not take hold? Today, the environment is screaming at us, saying it is now urgent.
Yeah.
Okay? So I say, please look at all aspects of this. The environmental aspect is actually bringing in the urgency you need for the world to go vegan as quickly as possible. Because when you have a fire in your home, that's all you worry about. That's all you work on.
Putting out the fire.
Putting out the fire. You don't work on, making your coffee and, this is my normal routine. No. You drop your normal routines and you put out the fire when you have a fire in your home. This is exactly what's happening on the planet.
Well, not according to Elon Musk.
Aha.
Yes. So I'm going to play his video. Okay, so he recently did this ridiculous interview with Joe Rogan where he basically stipulated that eating beef has no implications on the environment. So I'm just going to play the audio for you so we have some context.
I'm also not going to make a difference to global warming. It's not going to make a difference to global warming or the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere, really. If people eat fewer steaks, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. I want to be super clear about that. It's much more easy one. It's not going to make a difference. I'm also not going to make any difference to global.
Well, I just explained to you the mathematics. Okay? It's very, very clear from that. Either Mr. Musk does not understand mathematics, which I highly doubt, or he's being extremely clever. Because what he's saying makes zero sense whatsoever. Cows have to eat 50 to 100 times as much food as they produce. Okay? This is why animal agriculture is so inefficient. On average, for every animal food that you're eating, the animal had to eat 39 pounds of food. This is all in terms of dry weight. So we take the water out and then do the measurement. So it's a 39-to-1 reduction that goes through the animal before it comes to your plate. So this is why animals are producing 12% of the food we eat in terms of dry weight, and they're using 43% of the land area of the planet.
Wow.
85% of the food we eat is already plant-based. So when people say, let's do plant-based, I say, well, 85% okay? That's today's ratio. If you go to a supermarket and you measure all the plant food that are there, you measure all the animal foods that are there, you will see it's an 85 to 1, 85 to 15 ratio, right? Somewhere in that region. Because most of the food you're eating is already plant-based. So, animal foods are tremendously inefficient. And this is why they're contributing to climate change in a big way.
But how can he say in his right mind, either he's high when he did this, or he's been paid, or he's ignoring it for a specific reason?
Yeah, he's ignoring it for the specific reason that he is the richest man in the world because people believe fossil fuels are the leading cause of climate change.
And he needs to drive this narrative that fossil fuels are the leading cause because of his bajillion-dollar company that relies on this idea.
Right, because he's selling electric cars. Okay, and everybody needs to go buy electric cars for his company to grow, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously he's got this bias, shall we say, on how to frame climate change and not look at what animal agriculture is actually causing. And so this is how they created this convention at the UN to hide the impact of animal agriculture. So they measure CO2 from fossil fuels in its entirety. But when you do CO2 emissions from land use change, you get a 70% discount. I mean, who does engineering like this, right? And when the animal is eating and breathing out CO2 into the atmosphere, you get a 100% discount. That's how they're doing the measurement.
How can they do that though?
Ask me, how can they get away with it, right?
It's completely skewing the data.
Exactly. This is how they've been pretending it is not the leading cause of climate change. I wrote a paper in 2021 saying that animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. And I went through it, their own reports, and I analyzed it as an engineer would. And my engineering analysis showed me that animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. Period. End of story. And no one has disputed what I'm saying there, They just say, well, we don't want to hear that. We'd rather quote this number. And those numbers are all based on this false accounting.
Yeah.
Okay? As soon as you start accounting honestly, because every CO2 molecule behaves exactly the same as every other CO2 molecule in the atmosphere. The plant doesn't care where it took the CO2 molecule from. So it's not going to say, I'll only take it from what the animal breathed out.
Yeah.
I won't take it from the fossil fuels.
Yeah.
It's going to do photosynthesis, right? So what is happening now is that animal agriculture is causing a lot of emissions to happen, and nature is compensating for all of that through photosynthesis in other places.
Yeah.
Now that photosynthesis in other places will still be happening if the animal agriculture industry had disappeared. This is why I say that animal agriculture industry, if it disappears, you will see the climate reverse immediately.
So it's literally an emergency.
It's an emergency. If you can change that ratio of what is being sequestered by photosynthesis versus what is being emitted by respiration and fire, if you can just change it by 5 billion tons of carbon per year, which is just about 10% of our total emissions if you count it all together, then you will see the CO2 level in the atmosphere come down by 2.5 ppm per year.
Wow.
Don't you want to see that? Don't the young people in the world want to see that? Don't we have a responsibility as adults to make that happen?
If we keep going in the direction that we're going in as a species,
Right.
in terms of consuming meat, dairy, overpopulating, keep having a million children, if we keep going in this direction, what's going to happen to the world in the next 10 years?
Well, the world will get rid of us and start over. See, it's an organism that's gotten so big, much bigger than what the planet can support. And it insists on growing more and more and more, right? And when an organism insists on doing that, nature says, no, I'm done supporting this. And she will just, so if you think about the photosynthesis is still happening, right, on the planet, which means nature is still compensating for as you call it, stupidity. Yeah? She's still compensating for it. She's patiently waiting.
Yeah.
All we have to do is to shut down this spigot from animal agriculture, and you will see this photosynthesis take over and restore the planet, right? So most of the forests are ready to come back. We don't have to do much. But in some places where we have really caused a lot of problems, we have to remediate. We have to restore the forest. We have to bring back the original trees that used to be there, the original shrubs that used to be there, so the original animals can come back. And why do we have to bring back the original trees? Because we are aiming for the same ecosystem that existed 200 years ago. Because we know that that climate was stable. So if you ask me, how do you stabilize the climate? That's what I would do as an engineer. I would like to bring back the original forest, so this way it stabilizes to what it was 200 years ago.
Right. Okay. Well, in that zone, we have another ridiculous reel for you to respond to. I'm just going to.
You have to look at how many things died for you to have your plant-based meal. And as a small farmer, as a guy who has a regenerative farm in Canada, when a tractor goes through a field full of corn or soy, which is what your Impossible whatevers are made out of, or your oat milk and all that stuff, if it's still not just sterilized farmland, there'll be salamanders, turtles, bunnies, mice, shrew, butterflies, ladybugs, and all the other ugly ones you don't want to think about. But they get chopped up by the tractor, and then birds come through and just eat all the animal carcasses that powered your oat milk. So,
oopsies.
In another version of reality, you could do what I do, which is I raise grass-fed cows and sheep and pigs that don't just eat grass, they eat a bunch of other stuff. But unless the cow stepped on a frog and that cow eats grass, nothing dies in the creation of that cow. And that cow, if I eat a pound of meat a day, it's going to last me for probably a year and a half. So my deaths per calorie from eating ribeye is 0.001 deaths from my ribeye. And your stupid oat milk has 1,000 dead creatures who died for the making of your animal safe stupid beverage that gives you diabetes and steals minerals from your bones.
First of all, 80 to 90% of the soy is grown to feed animals, especially soy in which glyphosate is used. Almost all of that is going to feed animals directly, which means the animal had to eat so much of that in order to produce a little bit of its output. So if you look at who's killing all those animals, the animal agriculture industry, okay, and those who support the animal agriculture industry. Number one. Number two, if you go look at a field in which a tractor has gone through, do you see a lot of dead bodies along the way? Because the mice, the rats, the other animals that are there, they're not stupid. They're not sitting around saying, wait for the tire to run over me. As soon as they hear something, loud, they run away and they hide. They go into holes and they hide. Okay? So this idea that little animals are being killed left and right with industrial agriculture, it's true when you pour chemicals on it. And I am not a supporter of industrial agriculture at all. I'm not a supporter of anything industrial. I think we need to go back to the old way of doing things, restoring original forests and taking time to harvest that we used to do.
Yeah.
Because we think we are so busy doing other things that we need just these machines to go and harvest for us. Tell me, what is more important to you? Your health or entertainment?
I think that's the right what you just said is that when people make these comments that so many animals die, insects die in the production of tofu, number one, they ignore the fact that more animals die in the production of meat in comparison to tofu because the animals are eating the plants anyway, and then you're eating that animal as well, so it's like quadruple the amount of deaths. But the other point is that you're just looking at industrial farming. They're just looking at industrial farming. If you farm organically, if you grow your own vegetables, if you get locally, you're completely eliminating that entire industrial process. And as humans, the point is not to be a purist. The point is to live as lightly with as minimal harm as possible.
Right.
And I've always said that I feel the only way to eradicate your impact is to kill yourself. And if we're not doing that and we're living, we're choosing to live, then how do we do it as softly and as gently as we can?
Right.
Obviously, we have to eat.
Right. No, please don't kill yourself, Kida, because we have a lot of work to do. So we are, in that sense, we are still an essential species on this planet.
Yeah.
A lot of work to do to restore the ecosystems of the planet. So I say we are going from a system which is all about extracting from the planet and heating up the climate in the process to a system that has to restore the ecosystems of the planet and in the process cool the climate.
Yeah.
So this is the transformation that's happening. I call this the caterpillar turning into the chrysalis, and then it'll become the butterfly eventually.
We'll see. Okay, last response before we go to our live audience. This is a very fun one. So this lady is a nutritionist. She had agreed to come onto one of my podcasts in a debate. Then she lost her shit and she freaked out, I guess. And I just wanted you to respond to one of her videos, okay?
Oh.
Basically, she shared a reel where she said that vegetarians, when you tell them that animal protein is superior, and then वो ऐसा कुछ पानी लगा रहा है on the children and they're screaming or something like that. Yeah.
Look, protein is in all plant foods. In fact, protein is what, 20 amino acids. Okay, there is essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. And it turns out that all 20 amino acids are in all plant foods. And that's a fact that you can go and verify in a laboratory.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just how much of each
Yeah.
you have to decide.
Right.
You know? And so it depends on what your body needs at any given point in time. How much of each. And it is just simple-minded thinking to say that the optimum protein matches your muscle protein. This is like saying to an elephant, if the best way to grow as an elephant is to eat another elephant. That's not true, right? The elephant is growing by eating plants, by eating leaves. She's getting all the protein she needs because it's not just muscle protein you have to build. You have to build all kinds of other cells in your body, right? So animal protein, mostly we're eating muscles of animals, which is very similar to our muscles. So why is that ratio the right ratio? Who decided that? That's the right ratio. It's some industry decided that, right?
Yeah. And I find it so illogical because, it's, as a nutritionist, I just think it's very unethical to be promoting incorrect information.
Right.
Like I was reading on the Australian, the British, the American Dietetics Association. They all stipulate that a whole food plant-based diet is healthy for humans at any stage of their life.
Right.
So how can any nutritionists claim that you physically require animal protein? I just think it's wrong to say that.
It's unscientific to say that, right?
Yes, that's what I just find concerning. So just before we go to the audience questions for a sec, you mentioned about consuming protein that comes from muscle, What about people that are on a carnivore diet? And we have seen a rise in carnivore diet in the last few years, especially with social media. And I'm just so curious about it because how can anyone be healthy just eating meat all the time?
Yeah, people are not healthy. See, they may feel good for a while. They may feel like, their symptoms have decreased, but it's building up internally. You're building up, cholesterol and blockages in your arteries internally. And eventually you'll get a heart attack faster because you're not eating enough, you're not eating any fiber on a carnivore diet, which means you're probably constipated already by starting a carnivore diet. And you're not getting some essential nutrients, micronutrients that only plants have.
It's so interesting because when we did a podcast with this carnivore guy, he basically said that when he did a deep dive into the research, that humans don't actually need fiber. and it's a fallacy that we actually require it.
Our bacteria do. See, we are a host for bacterial cells that are 10 times our cells. Okay? Without those bacteria, you're not alive.
Right.
You die.
Yeah.
So we have to take care of our gut flora and fauna, you know? We have to take care of their needs.
Yeah.
And they help digest the food.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so which means you need to keep them happy, and that's what the fiber is for.
Yeah. So basically you're saying that if someone decides to go on a carnivore diet, it might be fun and games for a couple of months, maybe a couple of years, and it might reverse some, because some people say that if they have irritable bowel syndrome and they go carnivore, that it helps their bowel problems and then all of a sudden they're cured. But my obviously I don't have any health qualifications, but just from a common sense perspective, I would have thought that wouldn't you just do a process of elimination? Maybe you're allergic to something.
Right.
Maybe like I was having some gut issues, and that doesn't mean I start eating steaks every day. I was having gut issues and I eliminated something. I took olive oil out of my diet. The moment I took olive oil out of my diet, my gut has gone back to normal, and everything is fabulous again.
Right.
So the thing is, I don't think people understand and this is where I'm so surprised that nutritionists don't look at it this way. They don't look at health holistically, that, all of our bodies are different, but foundationally we're the same.
Right.
Right, biologically we're the same.
Right.
And when we did this podcast with this other nutritionist, Mukta, who thinks plants are alive, that's a whole other, who thinks plants are sentient beings, she was like, look, humans can be healthy on a carnivore diet, or they can be healthy on a vegan diet, whatever makes them feel good. And I'm thinking, but that's so wrong to say that, because we know biologically humans are a certain way, right? So how can you say that it's then okay to be carnivore, just because you're feeling, because that's encouraging the people, if I want to be a carnivore, I can be carnivore.
Yeah, well, they have an agenda, clearly, to maintain the system, because that system is giving them a lot of money,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there is so much of that going on, an underlying motivation as to what people tell you. As the American Dietetic Association and the British Dietetic Association have said, it's appropriate to eat whole plant foods at every stage of the human cycle. Right? So which means if it is appropriate to eat it and it's adequate to eat it, and that helps the planet revive, why wouldn't we do it?
Yeah.
That's the ultimate question you need to be asking.
I think we're just selfish. I think ultimately that's what it is. And I know you're much more of you have a very positive outlook about people, which I think is amazing. But I just feel that people are just selfish and don't care.
But Amy, think about it. You have a system that rewards selfishness.
Yeah.
You have a system that rewards, greed.
Yeah.
So then why are we surprised that people are greedy and selfish?
Yeah.
Right? So it's a systems issue. It's a system that rewards selfishness, and therefore it's amplifying selfishness. If you build a system that rewards selflessness, it'll amplify selflessness.
So then, kind of coming back to what we were very earlier on talking about, so the system has to change from the top.
System has to change from the top, but to make it change from the top, you have to force it to change from the bottom.
Right.
They will never concede and give up the system just because they are, generous of heart, because they're not.
So how do we change it from the bottom?
Gandhi showed us how to do it, right?
That's true.
Gandhi showed us how to do it by just changing what we consume.
Yeah.
He shook the mighty British Empire by just changing what we consume.
Yeah.
So now it's the whole world. People on the ground have to change in order to force the system to change.
Yeah.
Right? This is why I look at the vegan movement and I say, it's amazing how it is growing everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So this is nature. Nature is really sort of triggering all this everywhere, right? Giving us these funny diseases. Some people want to know why. It makes us think about what are we eating. And so we've all become vegan from something or the other that caused us to go vegan. And it's happening all over the world. And I said, this is the movement that's gathering momentum
Yeah.
and that will force a system change. So please don't lose heart and keep at it.
Yes. I mean, I will always keep at it. I feel it's the least I can do for the animals, always. But yeah, I just find humans insufferable most of the time. So I have a very bleak view, I guess. Anyway, moving on to our wonderful live audience. This is the first time we've done this, so I really don't know how this is going to go, but we have some wonderful people who've joined us today to ask our doctor here questions, and I will pass it over to you guys. Who is going to ask first?
Do vegans lack energy and strength?
I have so much energy and strength, I don't know what to do. No, seriously. I went vegan in 2008, okay, and I did it for the environment. And at that time, I had arthritis. I had severe sinus problems. So I was taking medication every day. And one day I forgot to take my medication about a month into my vegan journey. And I realized that I don't have that pain anymore. My arthritis pain was gone. So I told my wife that, and she said, well, not tomorrow, just don't take it deliberately. Because you may have taken it and forgotten to, right? So the next day I didn't take it deliberately, and by evening I was jumping up and down, saying, I feel like a 16-year-old again.
Well,
Okay. So I'm now 65, almost 65, and I have more energy than I did in my 40s. Okay, really, literally I have more energy than I did. Because I do my routines every morning. And I ask anyone, if they just try it out, and you will see.
What about the people who have low income source, and if they transition from from normal diet to climate friendly diet, will they face malnutrition?
I mean, you have to be, you always have to be careful about what you're eating, right? Climate friendly diet can be done cheaply and making sure that there is no nutritional issues. Okay, so it's just having a variety of plant foods. So, and I think people who are poor, they are stuck in a system that's causing them to be in that situation. And I say, I don't judge them at all. If they want to eat animals, they can eat it. I want the people who have choices to make the right choices first. That's how we will change the system. But a lot of people at the bottom of the economic chain are already vegan,
by default,
By
principally.
default, yeah. They're already vegan. So they're not the ones we are worried about. It's the people at the top. I'm worried about the health of the people at the top as well, because they are the ones who are suffering also. So India is becoming the diabetes capital of the world and heart disease capital of the world.
Can I just quickly interject on this, sorry, just on the diabetes comment. Whenever we talk about diabetes, the first thing everyone will say is that, well, diabetes is common in India because so many vegetarians just eat carbs, and carbs is the main source of diabetes. So what is your comment about that? Because from whatever little I know, I feel that animal products play a very big role in diabetes. So where has this carbs thing come into the picture?
See, the diabetes is usually detected by measuring the sugar in your blood, right? And that sugar is because of the carbs.
Yeah.
Right? But why is the sugar there in the blood? Because it's not able to get into the cells and do its job. And the reason it's not able to get into the cells is because the cells are being clogged up with animal protein, with animal fat, typically. So the cause of diabetes is animal fat. The symptom that it shows is due to the carbs.
Wow.
So you have to eliminate the cause first.
So if you eliminate, let's say, animal products from your diet, right? And let's say you're still eating a carb-heavy diet.
So read up Dr. Nandita Shah's book, Prevent and Reverse Diabetes. And she'll go into details on how you do this. When you have disease, you have to do something special to reverse the disease first, right? It's exactly what's happening with our planet. When you have climate change, you have to do something special to first reverse it. Then you can maintain it. You have to maintain it. Same with diabetes. So you have to first reverse it by maybe going on a completely fruit-based diet or something like that.
Okay, so moving on to our next question.
So my question is, animal husbandry leads to a copious amount of organic waste that is being produced. Through your study of the ecosystems, how have you observed that this, through the phenomenon of bioaccumulation and magnification, is coming back to harm us? You mentioned one example that how plants need to store up more carbon dioxide. Could that also be a cause because of which the nutrient content of our food is going down?
No, nutrient content of our food is going down because we have been destroying the soils, right? With chemical agriculture. So we have to restore the soils. And then, the question about what is happening with the bioaccumulation, it has to do with the chemical pollution of the planet. So our industrial processes have been pouring about 220 billion tons of chemicals into the environment every year. 220 billion tons. Think about that. That's about 30,000 kgs per person per year. That's how much you're pouring into the environment. And those chemicals don't go away. They come down in the rain, they're absorbed by plants, and plants try to filter the chemicals out. And then they transpire through their leaves pure water as much as they can. And they keep all the chemicals in their trunks and their stalks. But when you take the entire plant and feed it to an animal, that animal is going to accumulate that. Okay? Because the animal is going to eat the chemicals, and then the chemicals get stuck with the fat cells in the animal. So which means when you get the milk out of an animal, it is full of those toxic chemicals. So animals, we have a liver that filters chemicals from our system, whatever we're eating. But the liver takes about 7 years to reduce the chemicals in your system by half. Whereas a plant does it every step of the way.
Wow.
Right? So this is why if you eat only the fruits on the plant, you will get as pure a product as possible. But if you eat the entire plant, you're going to get the chemical pollution also in that. But if you eat an animal food, you're going to get 10 to 100 times the chemical pollution that you'll get in the plant food. So that itself, if we could see the chemical pollution around us, it'll get you off of animal foods right away. The only reason we're eating is because we don't see it.
Oh.
But it's there and it is accumulating. Every year there's more than there was last year. Because every year we're adding another 220 billion tons. And that comes from all the industrial processes that we have for all our other consumption that we do. So this is why even consumerism has to go, right? If we want to heal the planet. So we have to really rethink the entire system. You cannot patch it up based on what we're doing now.
Wow.
तो सर, जैसे मैं कई सारे लोगों को ऐसे जानता हूँ जो ऐसा बोलते हैं कि क्लाइमेट चेंज फालतू बात है, कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, ऐसा पहला। दूसरा, मीडिया हमको नहीं दिखाता है वो चीज़ें कि कहीं कहीं पर कुछ जगहों पर देखने को मिल जाता है कि आज से कुछ ईयर्स बाद हम पाएंगे कि मुंबई और ऐसे जो एरियाज़ हैं वो पानी के अंदर जा चुके होंगे, ग्लेशियर्स पिघल रहे हैं और ये सारी चीज़ें हमको ऊपर से पता चलती है। मतलब बहुत ऐसा समझ लीजिए कि ना के बराबर जानकारी जो मोस्ट ऑफ द मीडिया है वहाँ से कम मिलती है, उनकी तरफ से कम आती है, बट खोजने निकलते हैं तो फिर पता चलता है। तो ये बात कितनी सच है कि अभी थोड़े समय बाद, क्योंकि हम लोग मुंबई में बैठे हैं तो थोड़ा सा सोचना पड़ता है इस बारे में कि कितनी सच्ची है ये बात कि ये हो जाएगा जिस तरह से हम चल रहे हैं उस हिसाब से।
Yeah, look, it's being framed in a way that you don't think about what is happening. There are 20 million climate migrants annually, over 20 million climate migrants, meaning people who had to leave because their village got flooded. because of a glacial outburst or something like that, or a wildfire that happened, and they are now in trailers because of that. Even in the US, it's happening everywhere. Okay, there are 20 million people who will tell you that climate change is happening because it affected their lives, right? I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and this year we had over 120 days continuous of over 100 degrees Fahrenheit temperature. So AC had to run full blast for us to live there. Okay, that didn't happen before. So we know, and you can measure the temperature, and you know that things are getting hotter, and it's getting hotter faster and faster. What does that tell you? That there is something serious going on. No? So why did we build all these measurement instruments if you're not going to use it, and if you're not going to make logical decisions based on that? So we have been given these tools, these amazing tools, to understand what is going on around us and to take appropriate action. This is what I mean by us growing up as a species. And of course, it begins with eating the right food. Every other species knows what to eat. We are the only species that seems to be really confused about what to eat. And we think we are the smartest species on the planet. Right? So, if you can eat it as a child without cooking anything, that's obviously is your first food. So, fruits are your first food. Right? That's what our ancestors grew up on before they learned how to cook.
I think we're the stupidest species on the planet, to be honest.
सर अभी जो बात सुनी उससे एक चीज़ और आई दिमाग में कि मान लीजिए मैं मांस खाता हूँ या मेरी हरकतें इस तरीके की हैं और मैं रहता हूँ मुंबई में, तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ मुझे परवाह नहीं क्लाइमेट की, मुझे ये मुझे वो, क्योंकि मेरे पास सारी सहूलियतें हैं, सारी चीज़ें मौजूद है मेरे पास में. मेरी करनी का खामियाजा कहीं कोई और भुगत रहा है. जैसा आपने बताया कि कितने 20 मिलियन 2 मिलियन हाँ हर साल वो शिफ्ट कर रहे हैं क्योंकि उनका वो जो गांव था वो तबाह हो गया. क्यों तबाह हो गया? क्योंकि ग्लेशियर पिघल गया. क्यों पिघल गया ग्लेशियर? क्योंकि वन ऑफ दी बिगेस्ट रीज़न आपने बताया कि एनिमल एग्रीकल्चर है. क्यों हो रहा है एनिमल एग्रीकल्चर? मेरी वजह से, क्योंकि मुझको मांस खाना है या दूध पीना है या अंडा खाना है या और XYZ फालतू काम करने हैं. तो शायद मतलब एज अ ह्यूमन बीइंग, इंसानियत के नाते, भले मुझे ना परवाह हो किसी जानवर की, अपने फेलो ह्यूमन बीइंग की परवाह करते हुए ही मैं छोड़ दूं इन सारी चीज़ों को. मुझे वो समझ में, इस पर आप कुछ.
Yeah, not only because of the climate migrants, there are 700 million people who are going hungry every year. Why are they going hungry? Because their food was fed to the animals. Preferentially. The animals never go hungry. How is that possible? Animals never go hungry. They're fed properly and then they're chopped up and turned into meat, right? So which means we are prioritizing those animals over the people, over the human beings. Right?
Would we solve world hunger if we went plant-based diet?
Absolutely. See, not only we will solve world hunger, we will also stop the exploitation of humans for crazy jobs like slaughterhouses and children mining. All that will stop because everyone will have plenty to eat. And so this entire system of consumerism will collapse. And this is why the system of consumerism is propping it up by lying to you, but you have to eat it, otherwise you're going to wither away and die. So they're doing all kinds of lies to try to get you to keep consuming the animals so that you can maintain this system which is exploiting people at the very bottom and then exploiting the animals, of course, and sending the wealth up to a few people at the very top.
But there's an argument that we often hear in regards to veganism where people say that being on a vegan diet, you need to have so many supplements, and supplements are bad for you. As such, being vegan is not natural, and having a balanced diet with meat, dairy, eggs, and vegetables, that is the best diet for you.
Well, the supplements will affect the animals right now, okay? Because the animals are not getting also the nutrients, because nutrients have been depleted from the soil. And so the animals are fed supplements, and then you are getting the animal flesh and eating it and saying, I don't need supplements anymore. Well, the animals ate a whole bunch for you to eat that, right? So why would we do it that way instead of taking the supplement ourselves? It's only B12 mainly that we need to supplement ourselves with. And vitamin B12, is from soil bacteria. And we are the only species that washes its food before eating. So in the olden days, people used to just eat the fruit directly, and they would get the B12 in the soil.
Actually occurring from the soil. That's so interesting.
थैंक यू सर जवाब के लिए. एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन है मेरा कि एज अ ह्यूमन बीइंग मुझे इस बात पे ज़्यादा ध्यान देना चाहिए कि मेरे डाइट में क्या है या मेरे लाइफस्टाइल में क्या है, या लाइफस्टाइल में खैर वो चीज़ आ जाएगी कि मैं एक कार कम ले रहा हूँ और कपड़े कम खरीदे और 5 स्टार वो रेटिंग वाला एसी लगा दिया या लाइट बल्ब चेंज कर दिया और बल्ब अलग तरीके का लगा दिया, इन बातों पर ज़्यादा ध्यान दूँ या जो मैं कंज्यूम कर रहा हूँ, जो मैं खा रहा हूँ, उन चीज़ों पर ज़्यादा ध्यान दूँ?
Right. What you're consuming, what you're eating is much more important than everything else put together. Okay? Because that's how much energy is embedded in the food you're eating compared to the energy in all of these other things that you're talking about, So this is why, food is such an important aspect of this transformation. It's the foundation of the system. It's the foundation of colonialism. Okay? Because if you stop eating animal foods, the entire colonial system collapses. Isn't that what we all tried to do from the beginning? Right? So this is really the continuation of the Swadeshi movement that Gandhi had started. It's veganism and minimizing your consumption. So do both, yeah. Thank you.
So, sir, since when I am familiar to this word vegan, I have heard from many people that they were consuming milk or they were consuming meat. So, what are the common mistakes that people make while switching from non-vegan to vegan?
When I started, I can only tell you what happened. When I started, I tried to mimic the food I was eating. So I started making, because I used to have curd rice every day. So I started making soy curd so I can have curd rice every day too. But eventually then you evolve. You change your whole diet. Literally, if you think about it, we are in an amazing situation where we have access to fruits from everywhere, from vegetables from everywhere, from grains from everywhere. Such tremendous variety of foods that we have available to us than what our ancestors had. Okay? So we have that abundance for a reason. And that reason is that we can now take care of ourselves with just plants, but we have to be careful about it. Meaning, you have to be responsible for what you're eating. Don't just rely on someone telling you, if you eat this, you'll be fine. To listen to your own body. See what it's telling you.
Yes, I agree with it. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Does anyone have any other questions?
सर, कोई व्यक्ति है जिसका यूँ कहना मुझे परवाह नहीं किसी भी चीज़ की, मैं तो खाऊंगा और क्या पता कल मर जाऊं, और जो तू बता रहा है करने के लिए कि ये सब करो, ये सारी चीज़ें करो, तो उससे तो हो सकता है कि 5 मिनट बाद मर जाऊं मैं. जितने रिस्ट्रिक्शंस और ये सारी चीज़ें, पाबंदियां लगाई जा रही है, तो जो ऐसी मानसिकता वाला व्यक्ति है कि हो सकता है मैं कल मर जाऊं, तो मेरे को जी लेने दो, एंजॉय करने दो ज़िंदगी को. और मांस खाना मतलब एंजॉयमेंट, दूध से बना श्रीखंड खाना मतलब एंजॉयमेंट. तो कैसे ऑपरेट करें, कैसे उस माइंडसेट को चेंज करें?
I mean, yeah, we get addicted to some things. We like to do certain things. But suppose there's a fire here. Would you still do what you want, what you like? Or would you put out that fire first? You put out that fire first, right? That's what's happening on the planet. So if you think you're going to live another 30 years or 40 years, you need to be worried about the planet first. Make sure that it's going in the right direction. If it's not going in the right direction, there is no future for any of us. So this actually should be a time of celebration. but it's a time of the greatest anxiety among the younger generation. Why is it that way? Because you've been lied to. You've been told this is the only way to live. And it's only going to go down. And millions and billions are going to die. And you cannot do anything about it. That's what you've been told. I'm here to tell you there is something you can do about it. Number one. Number two, now this is a time for us to transform out of this caterpillar mode and become the chrysalis and then become the butterfly. Okay? And this is an inevitable transformation because it's only going to get worse in nature. Nature is going to send you louder and louder signals until you listen that there is a fire. And until you do what needs to be done to put out that fire, which is to go vegan. Okay? So, when you think about that from a larger perspective, your minor thing about what's my taste doesn't matter anymore. You know? Like I was drinking coffee, I was making coffee when my house caught fire. I didn't know. But as soon as I realized my house was on fire, I wasn't making coffee anymore. I was, that was the last thing on my mind.
और अगर पता चले कि जो कॉफ़ी में बना रहा था उसी वजह से फायर लगी है. मतलब मैं किचन में जो बना रहा था उसी वजह से फायर लगी.
Yeah.
But ऊपर से वो सब like you're saying कि अगर मांस खाना enjoyment है अभी के लिए and all the stuff, श्रीखंड etc. You can make all those things and enjoy all those tastes that we've always had by just changing the ingredients, right? But you can still have those things. I think a lot of people don't realize that you just use a different milk or make something else.
I mean, you can make the same kind of food and eat it if that's what your preference is, but eventually you'll grow out of it. You don't need it, right? You'll grow out of it because there are more important things that we have to worry about, that we have to take care of. See, if you think about it, what has happened is absolutely amazing. We as a species have so much power that we can actually change the climate of the planet. Isn't that incredible that you can do that? But as soon as you realize that, we as a species have a responsibility to stabilize the climate of the planet. Because we are changing it, we have to stabilize it. Okay? So take care of that responsibility first. Then you can enjoy. Right? So, and what does this do? If you stabilize the climate of the planet, you would have ended the late Cenozoic Ice Age. It's been going on for 33.9 million years and it's over because of human beings. And the Earth will have a stable climate from now on as long as we want to maintain it. So no more going in and out of ice ages and lots of animals used to die from going into an ice age and then coming back out of an ice age. They come back and then they die again, they come back. That happened for the last 3 million years. So during that time, the Earth spawned us as a species, gave us control of fire. Think of our ancestors who went out of Africa and went to every part of the world. Do you know how much difficulty they had going from Africa to North America, walking over ice bridges? I just got on a plane and came over here. Thanks to them.
तो सर मैं चाहूँगा कि आप 2 शब्द इस बारे में कहें कि जैसे मान लीजिए मैं अपने आप को क्लाइमेट एक्टिविस्ट बोलता हूँ, मैं एक क्लाइमेट एक्टिविस्ट हूँ और मैं एक प्रोटेस्ट में जाता हूँ या मेरा एक पूरा रूटीन है, बट उसमें एनिमल प्रोडक्ट शामिल है. तो क्या मैं जस्टिस कर रहा हूँ अपने उस टैग के साथ में कि मैं क्लाइमेट एक्टिविस्ट हूँ या मैं अवेयर हूँ क्लाइमेट को लेकर के?
Climate activism and animal activism should be one and the same thing. Okay. So, liberating animals is about liberating human beings and liberating the planet and to heal the planet. So, I call it human earth animal liberation. It's one single thing. It's a system that needs to transform. This is why I see this as all the social justice movements coming together around this foundation of veganism.
That actually leads me to my question. Recently, I was talking to someone and they said to me that, Amy, I'm not a vegan, but I drive an electric car, so I'm doing my part for the environment. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, this is what they've been sold so far, and I don't blame them for being confused about it. But going vegan is far more important than driving an electric car. Far more important. In fact, when you drive an electric car and you think you've done your part, you think that the system will not change. Does not have to change at all. It's just the means by which we produce these things needs to change. So it will always be about growth in the in the economy, and it'll always be about extracting from nature, which is what the economy is all about. Why are we all in Mumbai? Why are we all concentrated in one city? Because we are trying to figure out how to tell the other people to extract from the planet and send it to us.
Yeah.
People live in cities to figure out how to extract from the planet, because it's an economy based on extraction, right? It needs to become an economy based on restoration, not extraction anymore. You've extracted so much that there is, we don't need to extract anymore. There's plenty for what you've extracted, right? So we need to now do whatever we need to just maintain, and then simultaneously figure out how to restore. Because that's the number one thing that needs to happen on the planet.
Yeah, because I agree with you there. I feel like that thinking needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've taken so much from this earth already, and we're still taking
Right.
in a magnitude though that is so mind-boggling. And I think unless you really look into it and you investigate and truly see the magnitude of it, you're very, like when we live in modern society, going to a 9-to-5 job, going home, having dinner, living our lives, we're so detached from who's paying the price for that Zara dress or who's paying the price for that turkey that you had for dinner.
Right.
No one really connects the dots in terms of the implications of that life and how sustainable it is. Before we wrap up, I had a quick question for you. Obviously, we know that in Delhi, it hit record levels in terms of the heat. Before we were talking about what does the next 10 years look like, would you say that in India, it's going to get too hot to sustain life if we keep going in the direction we're going in?
Oh, absolutely. Everywhere. It's going to get harder and harder to sustain life everywhere if we keep going this way, right? In a lot of places, it's going to get too hot to live. In some places, things are going to melt on you and flood you out. So there are places where people have built and they thought it was permanently defrosted land, and it's now just disappearing because it's not. Permafrost is melting away.
Wow.
Right? So it's not that the cold places it'll be easier to live. No. Everywhere it becomes unstable. Right? So literally, we have to bring it back to a stable climate.
Yeah.
That we know was stable for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Without us doing much.
Yeah.
And that was what was there 200 years ago.
Yeah. Wow. And I know I said this was my last question, but I just got another one that isn't necessarily in your scope professionally, but it's just something I'm curious what your thoughts are. So how we were talking about COVID before, I got the COVID vaccine, and I have friends because I had to. I wasn't allowed to work unless I had a COVID vaccine. But I have friends who were very adamant and did not get the vaccination. I just wanted to know from your opinion, what are your thoughts on vaccinations in general, especially something like a COVID vaccine?
Well, when you force someone to do something and simultaneously you're not telling the truth about the cause of it, you raise a lot of suspicions. Okay? So when you don't tell people that if you stop eating animals, you can reduce those underlying diseases that make COVID so lethal for people, then I think there is something fundamentally wrong with the ethics of the people in power who didn't tell people that if they just had whole food plant-based diet and if they just changed their diet, they could minimize the risk of dying from COVID.
Yeah.
Why would you not tell people that?
Yeah.
To me, it's just unethical,
Yeah.
And when you do such unethical things, don't be shocked that people don't believe you in other places.
Yeah.
So they lost their credibility, and so I don't have any issues with people who say I'm not going to take the vaccine because I don't believe them anymore.
Yeah. I was very disappointed that I had to take. I've actually never had a vaccine in my life. Not that I have any specific opinions about vaccinations. I'm sure there are some that are necessary for humans. I don't know much about it, but I didn't like that I was forced into a situation to take it when I know I have a very strong immune system and I eat a whole foods plant-based diet. The likelihood, even if I got COVID, I think my body has the capability to recover itself, you know, and if it doesn't, then I'm just weak, get rid of me, there's too many of us anyway. So the way I look at it, I'm like, you know, but anyway, I digress. But no, it's been a very illuminating conversation with you. I've learned so much about the implications of our choices, and I hope that it's helped other people to learn more about it as well, and also understand the need of the hour is to reduce our reliance on animal products, and not just animal products, reduce consumerism.
Yes.
I think that is the biggest takeaway that I've had today.
Wonderful. I'm glad you got that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. Thank you so much to our amazing audience.